Welcome to IT Mastermind Talks, your access to insights and experiences from thought leaders in the IT services industry and those that support the industry. Our podcast features not only the seasoned professionals charting their start to exit journey, but also the key contributors who help ensure their success. We delve into the diverse challenges encountered within the IT services realm, encompassing both professional hurdles and personal obstacles. Join us, be part of our growing community and engage in the conversation. Hosted by Ian Markram of Loading Growth.
Hi, good morning. And today I've got Ash Brown from Empiraa today. He is one of the founders from Empiraa, which is an awesome tool. I'm going to let him explain what it's about. We use it in our coaching program, so we know it quite well. We've been part of the evolution right through to Empiraa 2, which has just been launched. I'm excited. A few of our clients that use the product are very excited, but I don't want to talk about it because it's really Ash Brown's show today. I'm just the interviewer. So Ash, how are you?
I'm good, Ian. Big push to go from 1 to 2, 1.0 to 2.0, and it's been awesome actually. And but thanks for having me on the pod, mate. You've had some awesome guests, so to be asked is great.
Oh, appreciate it. Look, we normally start our podcast it's very informal. It's the journey. How did you get there? As a founder, who are you? And you're a SaaS company, so that's also interesting as well in the world that we live in today. So I'm just going to ask you, really, who are you? Where you're from? Where do you reside? And how do you go from where you are now, go back a few years to where you started your awesome company?
Yeah. So I'm from Melbourne. I'm a country boy, actually, I grew up in Albury and Benalla, which is northeast Victoria, which has been plenty in the news lately for other various reasons. But no. So for years, I worked in a company that went from sort of 1 mil to 100 mil. And I was part of this high growth business. And it was one of those things that it was so exciting. It's awesome to be part of these businesses that grow really fast. And I'm not exactly like the rogue scholar, I'm a bit of a high school dropout, never did uni, did all that. But I've always had that sort of business acumen and just sort of that grit and grind to go, okay, I can just do stuff. And I found sort of where the company that I grew up in 1300 Temfens, I found that was like my jam. When you find those sort of places like we're in this really, it was like sometime, it was at the back end of the GFC, so it was like 2008, 2009, and the government invested a heap of money into infrastructure. I think every school got a library or something, so it was ridiculous. It was a massive waste of money, but whatever. That's Australia. But I was smart enough to go, okay, well, this is a really good opportunity. Let's jump on this, and it actually helped us go from, I think, 100 million to from 1 million to about 100 million by 2019. I think it is. And now that the business is doing, I think, $130, $140 million a year since I left 6 years ago. But I just didn't want to continue working for someone. I don't make good money, all that sort of stuff. But you just turn around and go, I'm a malcontent, a bad employee. I need to myself. So
Fair enough. So that was where you were at the point to get to Empiraa. So what was the vision of starting it, and why did you start it?
Yeah, so the vision, I was going back to that original point, was I was part of the business, but when you're part of a high growth business, you're building the plane on the way up. So then one of the things I really identified was strategy was really important, but the problem was it was almost like code word for look, I'm really not doing it. I'm just working on the strategy. So it was like this sort of, and then no one would question it. And then I'd see it all the time. And we had these state manager meetings every year. All the state managers would present to the executive team, the board, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And 3-4 months later, you're like, okay, cool. How'd you go? Oh, we got busy, the usual BS that you get with around strategy. And I went, hang on a minute, this is one of the most inefficient parts of business that no one ever talks about. It's almost like this dirty word, strategy.
Yeah.
And I went, no, this is something that can be really impactful. But I was also an early adopter into like CRMs, into like safe. I think we're like one of the first 100 people or 100 companies that use safety culture for a recommendation through someone else. When it was iAuditor, the app on the iPhone. And so I've always had that sort of tech lean. So I've always wanted to sort of, if we could use tech to enable the business to control its own IP and destiny, then I always thought that was always a massive win, rather than getting Excel spreadsheets with sales reports that were basically full of BS. I thought, you know what, let's actually get a CRM. So when you're sort of building all these structures, that you start to really focus on that stuff. So yeah, but I'd said this massive hole, and it's still there. To be fair, is that strategy is just not. It's not. There's no solution that's actually come in and gone and simplified and collaborated and created an engaging way for companies to work in their strategy with their consultants. And they went, okay, that's it.
Well, look, when we use it in our business, I can see, because I'll tell clients all the time, let's jump on this great tool. And the first thing they say, we use spreadsheets. We do this in OneNote. We do this on Microsoft Planner or Project Planner. Or whatever tools, or Asana, or ClickUp, whatever. And then you say, well, can you show me what you've actually achieved in the last year with your strategy? And before you know it, it just unravels, because they don't have a strategy and they don't want to focus on the right next thing, as I call it when I coach. And that's because sometimes that right next thing is just too hard. And it's human nature to actually just sit back and, let's do the easy things every day.
Low-hanging fruit.
And sometimes you've got to hit those things head on, or get external people to resolve those things that are the right next thing for your business to keep on growing strategically and everything else. So it's still, to this day, the biggest challenge I think small businesses, even large businesses, have is clarity on where they're going, the goals they've got to execute on, and on top of that, who's accountable for it, so... Yeah,
no, I couldn't agree more. One of the big issues that I've found just in general, and it's probably going a little bit off topic, but it probably is relevant as well, is that a lot of the strategic frameworks that are out there, and people know who they are, so I'm not going to name them, it's about, you've got to re-engineer your business to suit the strategy, and the strategy should suit the business, because that's where the engagement issues really are. So if you've got someone who's been working in your business for 10 years, 15 years, 12 months, 18 months, they've got an operating rhythm that they've currently got. So they know they go in on Monday morning. Generally, they're pretty systemized. So if you turn around and say, hey, we've got to start doing these meetings. Hey, we've got to start doing this. It suddenly is like, well, oh God, I'm basically doing a completely different role. So there's a resistance straight away there. And that's where I've sort of really, this we'll talk on 2.0 later, but one of the things that I've really done in the designing of and the UX and understanding what customers are wanting, they don't want a product or a service that takes them too far away from what they're doing. They want to make degrees of change, not significant meters of change. They just want to move. If we can move 2 or 3 degrees to the left, we'll get to where we need to go. If you do and it's a lot easier to engage people that way. And I find that that's probably been the bit of a gap too, that strategy execution tools have been, by the way, now you've got to do this completely different system that you haven't done previously.
Sure.
And that's where the disconnection happens.
I think it's a barrier. It's a change management process. You're really right, because, when I ran my own IT services firm, was our co-founder there. We're a 115-man company at the time. We did a lot of these frameworks. We went out and investigated which one's the best. And there were a couple and we took pieces. What actually happened in the end, we took pieces from different frameworks that actually we felt was best for our organization at the time and at the growth point, rather than, going for one, because the one then meant we had to change the way we did work. And we were really successful. But the problem was, it was a change management process then would have to happen for the whole organization to carry on working. And that became inflexible, that model,
Yep.
So I think people are smart enough to know what's right and what's wrong at a certain level. And they can have flexible tools, strategic tools to take them from A to B in their journey, without a doubt. So I think that's one of the things that attracted to me when I actually had a first conversation with you. And I was trying to reflect on this before we did the call. The first time I spoke to you, I think, was April last year.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a pool. in Sri Lanka, and I was on a flight. I was on a flight from I think it was Brisbane to Sydney, and I saw this tool on the downtime on Wi-Fi, and I said, "This is the tool that I need for my clients."
Yeah.
And then basically we were talking back and forth a few times, and then at that stage I was on a holiday in a game park in Sri Lanka, and I was on the pool, and I was trying to to get clarity on exactly, where your organization was going with this product and everything else. And that's when we sort of hooked up together. So I'm a big believer that you've got to be flexible enough to actually have a strategy to get you from A to B. So that's what your tool does. And I love that about it. Yeah.
The best one thing I've noticed with especially the coaches and consultants out there, the best ones have sort of got this Frankenstein version of that various different strategies. They're pulling these different strategies. They get it, taking a little bit from Agile, OKRs, EOS, and they're creating this nice little Frankenstein. But that's the best ones because, to be honest, you grab the best parts of the best songs of using the drum beat from this one, they're using the bass line from this one, they're using the chords and the rhythm of this one, and you're putting it all together in this incredible sort of melody. And that's where the best frameworks lie, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's go back to the seeding part, how you started out, to get to start the business. So you obviously resigned from work at some point, and you decided to get into this gig. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I went through, there's a company called Hyper based out in Sydney, and it was during COVID, so which feels like many moons ago now. And I'm in Melbourne, so we were locked down for about 200 million days. And so one of the things that was really, but it was advantageous in some regards because I was running a business at that point and was lucky enough not to get furloughed or anything. It was great. So I had all this time on my hands. So I did this accelerator called Hyper based out of Sydney, which the guys I still speak to this day. Awesome. They helped me develop the idea. They helped create wireframes and then helped me raise money effectively as well. That was because I had no idea about any of this stuff. I was a temporary fence person and a hire person for a decade or more. And they really helped sort of, okay, well, this is how you raise money, this is how you do a term sheet, this do a subscription agreement, this is how you set up your ASIC. And I had no idea about any of this stuff, like legitimately zero idea. And AI tools weren't available then, so you couldn't just go into ChatGPT. How do I set up a company to do it? I think it's 2021, we raised, I can't remember what it is, but overall we've raised about $2 million since then. But during that sort of, we launched into the market the 2.0, I think it was 2023, back into 2022 actually, there you go. So it is a significant life cycle that takes the development cycles, and we'll touch on that later, obviously. But the development cycle was like 12 months. And I believe one of the people that you had on your podcast already, Matt Brown, he was a big part of what we did. He really helped us. He was part of a group that we employed to do it. And because I, once again, had no idea. If someone asked me, about a database, or I had no idea. So that going in a bit blind, and just once again go back to put the plane together on the way up. That's kind of how I went to do it.
Great. So you went out, you got some help. You obviously paid them for that help, or somehow there was agreement there, and then you sort of launched your business, and then your idea, and then you got a group of people together which you paid to actually build a solution for you.
Yep.
And get behind your vision of solving strategy for small businesses. So that's pretty awesome. Fundraising, it's one of the biggest things in startup world. I've invested in a few startups through my life, and I feel sorry for the process you got to go through because it's quite a stressful process.
Yeah,
it's never easy, and it's about selling a vision, but also showing what is reality around that vision. Can you just talk about the stress of raising your first bit of cash for the business, and what did you learn, and what should you have done now? Since you've been through that process?
Yeah, I mean, the stress of it is you don't actually know what the hell you're doing. And I don't care what anyone says, that the first part of it is you don't really know what you're doing. But by the way, if you speak to any business owner, they don't really know what they're doing when they first launch the business. No one does. No one's ever as prepared. The stress is also as soon as, I've mentioned this to a few people before, the second you receive money, it's no longer just an idea. It's no longer a vanity project. It's no longer, it's someone is transferring you money to, not as a gift, it's given to you because they want a return on investment in the next 5 to 10 years. That's something that you've got to reconcile with. So if you can't reconcile with that, and you can't handle that, and you don't trust them, you don't respect the money that's given to you, don't bother. And I know that sounds really, really direct, but it's true. Like these things, money's hard to get. and people that are investing, they've made money or they've got money and they want to invest in you, but they want to invest in your idea. They're investing in you. They know that the idea necessarily might not get, like, there's pivots left, right, and center, right? So it is. So as you get further down the line, as you get more and more responsibility, more and more investment coming along, that's where it does get a bit stressful, because you're sitting there going, well, geez, this is hard, because you're sitting there going, well, I just need to make sure that we're doing, we're sticking to the original vision of why people invested.
Yeah.
But also, I've got to give them, if someone gives me $1 or $100,000, I've got to treat it exactly the same. And I said that to one of the, we had a shareholder once who mentioned something. He goes, oh, my money went into that. Like, that's probably where the other part of it is, like, people's emotions. You've got to manage, especially when you're dealing with angel investors, there's different levels of emotions and different levels of maturity around those angel investors. And I don't mean maturity in a negative way. I mean maturity of, like, investment maturity. Some might put, say 100 grand in, let's just say, but they're like, oh no, they'll figure it out. They'll get to it. Someone might put 500 in for a virtual raise. Email me every 15 minutes about what's actually happening, because they're emotionally attached to their money, and they're probably, it's the old saying, if you can't afford to do it twice, don't do it, effectively. So for me, it's the investor relations can be a bit challenging. And to be honest, it's probably the most vulnerable thing you'll do, to actually turn around and say to someone, hey, look, we need money to get this going. Going to a VC or a faceless thing, it's a little bit different. Like, we don't have any VCs, which is kind of fantastic, to be honest. That probably will change in the future, but right now, and for the immediate future, I can't see it happening for many reasons. But it's the most vulnerable thing you do. I've never been good at asking for help, and I've never been good for asking for money. I've never been good for... So you put all those three things together and you sort of think, this is a different beast.
Yeah. Look, it's interesting because I invested a few times in a few organizations, and one of the things or with small businesses, it's interesting to see how everyone reacts. Some of the founders treat you as nothing, and then some of the founders treat you very, very well, and then they over engage with you as well. And I'm going like, look, I'm busy, but I appreciate the over communication, but I'm not going to read everything you send out. So it's hard to get that medium, because I'm a different person, and everyone else is a different person. So how do you actually match those expectations back and forth? It's quite interesting. Anyway, so you've done your first raise.
It is a juggle. That is a juggle.
Yep.
I will say that, like, I've got stronger relationships with some shareholders than I do with others. Some I'll reach out to and they'll give you nothing. Okay, cool. They're just waiting for the return. Others, like, very engaged, and the ones that engage with, I engage. So you got to mirror their energy as well.
Sure.
So if someone's basically been, mate, you're annoying the hell out of me, cool, let it be. So it goes back to those sales skills that you sort of have as well. Sort of understanding when a customer or prospect is engaged, follow those and mirror those tells.
Sure. Now that's a great segue there, Ash, because if I look at your skill set, and you've been talking about it, now, but I've known you for quite a while, is you are, a very personable person, and you build trust with someone really well, and then it leads to a easy way to do sales, okay, which is a really good thing. But you're not a technical person, and you're not a designer type person. But so how's your team formulated from right at the beginning to where it is now? Because that dynamics, you've obviously worked out what you're good at, and the team's good at, and shuffled the decks, as they say. So how's it, the makeup of that team, gone from version 1 start out before version 1, I suppose, from 0 to version 1 to version 2? Has it changed in those 3 sort of time slots?
Oh, significantly. So when we first launched, we had 3 people, and then when about a year or so later, we eventually had like 5 or 6 in the business, I think it was. Because, and to be fair, if I looked at it, I look at it objectively. We bet too early. Money was too cheap at that point. So this is like 2021, 2022, before everyone was getting destroyed by cost of living and all that sort of stuff, and interest rates. It was very easy to access capital. And when things have, and so which is, this is probably one of the things that I'll reflect on. I'm reflecting on now, actually. I think I went against those values of respecting the money at that point, because I just assumed it was just always coming.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think that was the industry. I think I got swept up in the startup industry, going to events, that type of stuff. And then you sort of sit there and go, "Oh, hang on a minute. A lot of this is," after about 6 months, you go, "A lot of this is fluff." And then you looked at it and went, "Actually, we're not really making anything here. Our outgoings are unbelievable. I'm stressing out like crazy. I've got to make some decisions." So we had someone in the US, which that was strategic at the time because we had an investor. I mean, there's a story in itself. We had an investor that was going to invest $2 million into Empiraa, based out of the US and Geelong. They went bust. They got raided by the ATO, caused all sorts of crazy stuff. Like it's a whole podcast in itself. And then from there, I had to pivot very, very quickly. So if someone said, "What's the word of Empiraa?" Pivot. That's Empiraa means pivot in French. We'll just go with that. But yeah, so that was the thing. So I had like other salespeople on and that. But the other problem we had was our problem. And I didn't understand this as well as I certainly do now. We were trying to sell a product to a market that didn't need us at that point. And we didn't actually understand our ICP, and we didn't understand our product market fit, and we didn't understand our go-to-market. So those three things, if you've got those three things that are all misaligned, so if you're looking, you've got to be in a nice funnel. Those are like you work with your clients, you go, who's your customer, how are you going to get them, and what's the problem you're solving? If you don't have all that in a what's the name, you can't, in a nice silo, you'll get nowhere. And that's basically what happened. We had this product. We thought we were selling to accountants. Accountants didn't want to do more work. We were trying to sell to small businesses. They didn't know what the hell they needed a strategy for. They knew they needed one, but they had a blank page. So then I just went, after the scale facilitation stuff, I just went, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to cut bait, release people, which sucks. But that's, at the end of the day, the business is king. Go back to the investor conversation. I've got people's money, and that's a responsibility to invest in this business. I've got to respect that. And if I have to cut people to do that, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And because the business is king, whichever way you want to look at it these days. So then I went, okay, I'm just going to go into founder-led sales. I understood the sales process a hell of a lot, but which is funny. Upon reflection, I went away from all the things that made me good, I suppose, like that I was A grade in. So now if I look at the team, I've got me, Ash, another Ash. I don't just hire people with my own name, Ash McVeigh, and Ramel. So we've got a 3-person team, and we're operating on high cylinders. We're all working. We're working hard. We're not burning ourselves out, but we're working effectively. And I think the key to a good team is to have no crossover in the way of roles. So you don't want any role redundancy, but you want to make sure that everything links into that. Like if you've got a Venn diagram, you kind of want, okay, sales, Ash, marketing, Ash McVeigh does this, development, Mel does this. In the middle, sort of product. And then Ash and I can contribute to that, and Ramel can see. So if you look at it like a Venn diagram, and so that way we've not got no duplicity in any roles. We've got no role redundancies. Everything's sort of running in a very efficient way.
Very lean. Yeah, great. Yeah. So at one point, how big is your team?
I think we had six, which, when you're paying a payroll every month and you're sitting there going, holy crap, like we got to keep raising money every 10 seconds to keep this going, and we're not getting anything in. And to be honest, like if I had that team now, with the go-to-market, the ICP, the product market fit, the new product and all that, we would scale really well. But in saying that too, I don't really need to have them either, because we've figured out really, really efficient ways to go to market and close sales faster now.
Yeah, we'll get to that next. You built a team, you ramped up. Typical of what a lot of startups do, and this is the thing. Going back to what you're saying is what I disbelieve as well is sometimes. I'll see this in the startup community. People go out, grab a whole lot of cash, burn through it very quickly, get to a point where they believe that their idea is unique, and they can sell anything, and they got it, they're unstoppable, and then they hit a wall, and then they have a realization point where they go, holy shit, we can't keep this burn rate up for 3 to 4 months, and then before you know it, they cut back. It sounds like you went through that type of process.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's crazy because in the startup community, everyone's high-fiving each other about, there's one example out of 100 or whatever, 1,000 that actually gets through that wall and cracks through that ceiling. And majority of people never get there. They lose, their set life savings, they lose other people's money, put
Yep.
themselves and their partners and teams under stress. And I think sometimes people should take a more of a measured approach and then build up consistently, work out exactly who the ICP really, really is, and test the market really hard before, this product will work in Europe or this product will work in the US. Meanwhile, they haven't even left a state in Australia. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that's really amazes me when I talk to the startup community itself. Anyway, so you moved on to that. You're building the first version at that stage. You talked about your ICP and it was misaligned at the beginning, okay, to what it is right now. Can you just talk a bit about the ICP, how it changed, and what's the result of the change, I suppose?
Yeah. So how it changed was we did a thing called AppSumo, which worked out quite well. It really accelerated sort of the visibility of who our ICP was, and we had a lot of people say, a lot of consultants say, "Hey, we want to use multiple. Can we buy multiple plans?" I'm like, well, I reckon we probably had 100 or 200 consultants ask that for lifetime plans. And I was like, well, technically we didn't know how to do it. Like, just had no idea how to do it, because it's getting into the weeds. It's code based and various other things, so you've got to go through a fair bit of stuff. And by the way, I wouldn't do AppSumo again. Touch on that one, so then I realized consultants. But then the other side of it, so what I did was I went for probably 3 to 4 months, actually probably 6 months actually. I spoke to consultants and got them to work with Empiraa and then package Empiraa to companies. So Empiraa and a consultant X amount of hours, we started going quite well with that, in all honesty. Like the figures were actually going really well. But the problem was, I looked at it, this is not a scalable business. This is just a service business with software. And the margins were just like, software, you're looking at 80, 90% margins if you're doing it right. This, I was looking at, potentially we're losing money. And I'm like, this is not what we want to do. But what it did identify was consultants wanted to use this product to engage their clients. So then I basically stopped everything at the end of last year and just went, okay, I need to stop selling. I need to actually, because there's no point selling to a market that doesn't want you, because you're just burning yourself out and you're actually just turning around and just exhausting yourself, and your emotional energy just goes into the toilet trying to sell to an industry that doesn't want you. It's like trying to sell meat to vegans. It's pointless. And so I was going, okay, stop. I did a lot of research on agency models of other softwares like Go High Level, Xero, these type of companies. And went, okay, they've simplified pricing, they've simplified this, they're offering multiple sub accounts. So then I went back and said, this is what Empiraa needs to do over the Christmas break. Rebuilt the entire model, started testing it in the market, and then revenue started, but then we're trying to find out which consultants were the ones engaging. And the consultants that were engaging were sort of that small to medium, sort of that 1 to sort of 3 people operation. They don't have anywhere sort of to sort of 5 to 15 clients. They just wanted visibility. But the good part about that was giving it to them and then understanding, yes, these are the people that are paying for it, because guess what? The people that put their credit card in, they're the most important. We talk about fundraising. That's the best way to fundraise. Sales. And so once we started doing that and people were going, oh, you've got something here, but that was the 1.0. And the problem with 1.0 was it was buggy, it was problematic, it wasn't scaling properly, it wasn't as simple or intuitive as I wanted it to be. So that's when we sort of made some decisions.
Fair enough. Very good. Very good. Awesome. So now you've locked in your ICP.
Yep.
And you realize now at this stage, because I've been speaking to you, I was one of those people going back and forth with you at that time. You're bouncing some ideas around. And you realize at that point that the ICP didn't really align with the product that you had at the time.
No, not at all.
So, and that's when you went on another tangent, which we'll get to later, where you decided to redesign everything from the ground up. You took the brave step to stop the bus and basically effectively get onto another train, basically, and get going on a different direction and a different mode of transport, which, it takes guts, because you spent so much time, money, and effort to get to that first version, then to stop everything, jump off and start on something else. So that's pretty impressive to do that. And I want to take my hats off to you, because I think that's something that a lot of people cannot do. They can't admit that something's wrong and change the direction when they needed to. And I think it's a lot of founders have that issue. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes the arrogance of the founder. Look, all founders are arrogant. You've got to
Yeah,
be because you have. There's the other way you get through the day,
yeah,
and honestly, because you've got to have that self belief that it doesn't matter if you own a milk shop or you own Atlassian's. You've got to have this ridiculous amount of self belief that you can get it done. And it's funny because no one really celebrates you on the way up. It's not till you're on the AFR or the BRW or whatever
for sure.
that then he crushed it. It's like, well, actually, I've sort of had the same mindset since day one, but okay, cool. So, but yeah, you don't really, I think you go back to the idea, you got to be married to the problem.
Yep, passionate about it. That's right.
Yeah. And then you've got to be self-aware and if you go back to the vulnerability part, you go, well, I could cop some crap because we've completely, we stopped all marketing sales activities for 6 to 8 weeks. And someone might turn around and go, oh, well, you got to chase sales, Well, there's no point selling, there's no point selling cheeseburgers to vegans. It's not going to work. We're finding this is not working. But guess what? They're telling us what they want. And this is go back to listen to the customer. I think the most important customer is the one that stops paying you. The one that turns around and goes, and not because they stop paying you because they've got no money. They stop paying you because you didn't solve the problem. And it's like okay, well, why didn't we solve the problem? You didn't do this. Your product doesn't do this. It's not as intuitive as we thought. I've got emails that says, we love the concept, but it doesn't solve the problem that we thought we'd be able to solve.
Yeah.
And you sit there and go, well, I've got to fix that. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So we've got the ICP. The ICP is sitting there telling us, hey, we want to pay for this solution. This is a problem for us. We want to pay for it. Your current version is not solving the problem. It's making it worse because we're finding it hard to understand how to use the thing. So if you can put something together that actually solves it for you, then we'll come back.
Yeah. Great.
So it tells me that the sales process wasn't broken. The go-to-market wasn't broken. It was the product, and that was the part that wasn't solving the problem. So you've got to be truthful.
Great. So the lessons learned. Let's just recap that because I think it's really important. Some of the lessons learned that you had from Empiraa 1 to what worked, what didn't work, and then why you shifted to Empiraa 2 was it wasn't simple enough, it wasn't intuitive enough, and then you decided to rebuild it and move away from Empiraa 1, and obviously you had the feedback from a lot of people in the market that you've been working with and talking to, doing demos, all those type of things that resonated with. This problem's there, but it doesn't really solve it with Empiraa 1. We've got to have something more and a little bit extra, which is what moved into Empiraa 2, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's what it was, 100%. I sat there and went, okay, the problem's not being solved. The problem's still there. And I spent 3 years effectively, you want to look at it, we spent $2 million in 3 years of market research, which could be a bit scary to look at in retrospect. I looked at it and went, that's what we did. And now everything that we're building for 2.0 or built for 2.0 is like, even to the design of the way we're doing things is like, okay, does this flow work? Does this solve the problem for the consultant? Does this solve the problem for the client? Because at the end of the day, our software is to enable consultants and coaches and business advisors to look like rock stars in front of their clients. We want the clients to turn around and go, hey, we're using Loading Growth. He's got this software. It's unreal. It's doing this. I don't actually care that if it's got this on it or if it's got Loading Growth on it.
For sure.
Because my thing is, if our software enables Ian and Loading Growth to win and his clients to win, the clients are winning, then Ian's winning, then we're going to win. We start that value chain.
Yeah, that's really good, really good. So, you just talked about 2 million to solve, the test the market, okay? And you said it's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But I think the problem's so big. The problem that we're trying to solve, you're trying to solve, I'm trying to solve with my clients. It's a big problem, okay? If you don't have a plan as a small business, you will more than likely fail, okay? If you don't have a strategy or a plan or a way to get through those hard times when you're not working and not operating well, and reflect on why you're winning and reflect on what you did last year or 6 months ago to keep you motivated, to keep those energy levels up and everything else, I think you're going to fail. Most businesses fail, as we know, in the first year, and then the stats just prove after year 2, up to year 5 is horrendous.
only 10% get to year 5.
Yeah, only 10% of businesses get to. That is a big problem. Now, I don't think strategy is going to solve, but if it takes from 10 to 20%, I think it's amazingly huge worldwide. So, and I think it's important to, I think, for all small businesses out there to just, whoever's listening on this podcast, is to understand, if you don't have a plan, you'll never get from A to B. Okay.
Yep.
And I'll tell you the biggest thing I ever remember about, my early days of trying to strategize when I was working for Deloitte in Europe and doing some big system integration projects and bringing businesses together and splitting them up and everything else, some heavy duty, industrialized scale of moving people around and changing businesses, that if you didn't have an actual plan, you will actually get lost in the day-to-day running of the business. It doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are, it's the same. Okay, so
phones ring, emails ping.
That's right.
And as soon as those things happen, you train of course gone.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. So anyway, I think the $2 million is well spent, and I think it shows that you've proven the problem really, really well, and you can actually redevelop it. We'll get on to that next. So just some of the early constraints that held you back. Just quickly before we get really into the next session of discussion. You weren't obviously technical. Okay.
No.
Did that hold you back? Because some people end up starting a software business or a SaaS business, and they're fairly technical. They don't have the sales capability or limited sales capability. You had a lot of sales capability. What was your technical skills at that stage, at the early stage?
Fairly limited. Look, I had enough. I was smart enough to have people around me that were smart. I think in any business you should identify what you're weak at and then bring people in around you that are smarter than you, because I think that allows you to sort of, you're never going to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I looked at it and went, I lent on some people, like trusted people I knew, like just a sniff and smell test. What's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on this? Because I just didn't know. It all just seemed, SQL databases and Angular and .NETs and all this stuff. I was like, whoa, I don't know what any of this stuff is. Like a legit. So I had to really trust people. Probably the other side of it too, I didn't back myself enough, if all honesty, because I sort of deferred, and probably where I would talk about the Empiraa 1.0 was I deferred a lot of the functionality and stuff that I originally wanted to the development team, rightly or wrongly. And this is not a criticism. I just deferred a lot of the vision and idea that I had. Now, also too, the technical ability and the budget and all that sort of stuff. You can fit X amount into a £5 bag. There's no doubt there. But yeah, I probably didn't trust myself enough. I didn't think that I knew as much as I knew. Don't get me wrong, I still can't code. I still can't do all that stuff. But I've got basic knowledge now just to pass the sniff test. But yeah, as a non-technical founder, I think it was a challenge. But where it actually wasn't a challenge, where it actually was really good, was I was focused on the product and the problem. So I wasn't focused on the technical aspects of it. I think sometimes this is where software developers get a bit sort of, they're like, oh yeah, but it's got to do, it's fast, it does this, the process is, okay, cool. What does the customer give a crap? How does that tangibly help the customer experience? Oh, well, they're going to, it's 0.5% faster. Well, they don't care about that stuff. They care about where the button is and how does this do this and how does this do this, and how they use the actual product. Yeah, and I think that's probably, if you say superpower, I think my sort of superpower around that is to actually go, okay, how do we build a product that has that sort of, this is just sleek, intuitive. This is the best products ever. Redesigned effectively Adobe Photoshop so people that, people's grandmothers think that they're clever making business cards, making Christmas cards. All those type of things, the best products are the ones that make people feel smarter, not dumber. And I think that's where I think having a product lens versus a technical lens, I think that's where it's actually quite a bit of an advantage. But early on, I was overwhelmed and completely didn't back myself. My confidence on it, honestly, was really low. Really low.
No, it's good. It's good to be honest. And I think it's, as you said, I think it's there is a positive out of that you don't have to focus on the technical stuff because you can get really caught in the weeds. There's so much every now and then I want to go and do some technical work myself because my old days are fairly technical, and you end up YouTubing stuff and you get caught down a rabbit hole. 3 weeks later, you come out of this rabbit hole going, wow, I learned this whole new thing, but how useful is it for my clients? Probably not really that useful, Ian. So let's park that aside. You know what I mean? It's the focus thing.
It's cool, but does it help?
Yes, does it help? And it's always good to learn because I've been a consultant my whole life. You are pushed to learn. So sometimes you've got to feel like you've got to be keeping learning, And why aren't you learning something new? Well, good is boring sometimes, and that's where a lot of people make money is keep it boring, really. Yeah.
Boring products. Go back to the original, my origin story. 1310 fence. We hired temporary fencing.
Yeah.
To building sites to keep them safe. A non-technical product. 2 plastic feet filled with concrete and a 3 by 3.3 meter wide piece of wire. Companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money off good and boring.
For sure. Definitely.
As long as it's simple.
Very simple. So let's go back to what you built the solution in. You don't have to get too technical because, it's not right about that, but because it's important to talk about what the solution one was built on, Empiraa one was built on, because when you decided to, take that rain check in December and redecide to build it into Empiraa 2, you built it on a new platform. So can you just talk about what you built it in for version 1? What were the constraints around that? What actually, were the pitfalls that you didn't know at the time, but ended up being in December going, hang on, we've got enough. This is too enough. Can you talk a bit about version 1?
Version 1 was just breaking left, right, and center. We had too many dependencies, too many different. The software was relying on too many different elements and components to work. And the problem was if X broke, then Y broke, then the customer, because go back to the original, if the customer's having a bad experience, they don't want to use the product. And I think the biggest one, honestly, for me was when the clients were struggling to log in, and then also too that we had this real issue around .NET. And this is probably, your clients are probably big on this, but the .NET framework was effectively breaking. When that was happening, that was, and then we were going to have to spend 2 to 3 months to update it. And I turned around and went, okay, we're going to spend 2 to 3 months to update an antiquated product. There's not solving the problem. There's not then we've got to move on from this. And that's where I just went, nah, we're done. Let's rebuild. And then sat there, and it's a whole new world of development and engineering at the moment with the different tools that are out there.
Yeah.
And I sat down for a weekend and started building out the proof of concept and went, I think this is exactly what I want it to be. And that's sort of the origin story of that.
Sure. It's really interesting. So, the technical debt that you've built up in that solution and everything else is it's a big decision to move on and leave it. But one of the things that I noticed, we spoke a bit about this, was those product releases to that version 1 were just taking too long to keep on shooting through. So at the end of the day, you put yourself in a corner because you couldn't release quickly. And then everyone expects products to upgrade and new releases of new functionality to be, once a month. Talk a bit about that side of things.
Yeah. And that was the thing. We were talking about the perfect example, like your clients, you wanted a template, right? That took us 3 to 6 months to build. And it's something that should have taken 2 or 3 weeks max.
Yeah.
And because the problem was that the amount of tech debt that we had in there was just unbelievable. It was way too many dependencies. And to be honest, the actual cost of what we were hosting on Microsoft Azure, and that was unbelievably single database, single tenancies and all this. It was it was a nightmare. And by the way, that's nothing against the people that designed it. So I will definitely not criticize them for that. We built it for a specific purpose. That purpose is no longer required. A multi-tenanted approach works with very robust security settings. Will work exactly the same, because if it works for Uber, it can work for Empiraa. So that's, do you know what I mean? So that's why.
And tech's changed in the last year and a half alone. The underlying structures and everything else has changed. Can you just talk a bit about that as well?
Yeah. So we went from Angular to React. We went from Microsoft to GCP. We've gone from cloud deployment. We've gone from Azure to cloud deployment. We're using AI tools to help us develop faster. Our whole roadmap went from 18 months to 3 weeks. It's to the point where I was actually talking to the team yesterday. I'm like, I have got to start thinking of what else we add to the roadmap now, because we've accelerated that quickly. That like all the things I wanted in there, all charts, meetings, accountability charts, continuous improvement plans, AI throughout the whole platform that enhances, not just AI because, we've got AI like everyone else does. AI document readers, all this sort of stuff that I've always wanted to have in there that would have taken 2-3 years and probably another $500,000 to do. We've been able to do that in a far shorter and significant cheaper amount of time because we made that pivot. And you've seen the 2.0, and we showed it with one of your customers the other day, and he turned around and said, well, this is what I knew when we got him. He goes, where do we sign this up, and how much do I have to pay for this? Like, not in a bad way, but like how much, and part of, obviously your commercials is your commercials, but it was one of those things. It's just like, that's when I know is when people go, oh, that's cool, oh, that's helpful, oh, that solves that, oh, this saves us time. When you hear those in the demos, you're like, tick, 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 tick. That's when you go, I made the right decision. Yes, put us back 2 months, but think about it like a slingshot. You pull it back for accelerated and for greater velocity of growth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the new version is a lot slicker. The UI is awesome, and the functionality you've put in there is basically a lot of the things that we've requested over the period of the last year and a half. So I'm ecstatic to see it come through. So you moved to the new. How much money have you roughly saved on the server costs, just let alone moving to the new environment and new tech stack?
Cut it to 10% of the server costs that we're paying previously.
Wow.
So we cut like 90% of the server costs. I think our development costs have been shaved by about 70% as well.
Yeah.
So we've been able to save money, speed up the development. Yeah, it's stuff that be able to also too. One of the things that, and this is as a non-technical founder, one of the things that was one of the issues was I was finding that I had these ideas of what I wanted to do, but I couldn't articulate them in a way and design them in a way to give them to the development team to develop that for a particular use case. Now, with the tools that are available, I can actually completely build the UI, the functionality, all that, and hand that over to a development team that will work and go, okay, well, this got to hook up to this database, the API's got to do this, the rules and the logic's got to do this. So you don't have that sort of lost in translation of probably 60% of what you wanted. You're now getting 95 to 100% of what you wanted, and then also from a UI perspective, you're able to make those little minor changes. I want this to connect to this, to do this, to do this, and then I want this to reflect here, and I want this to reflect there. You can actually do those things now. You couldn't do it before. And then also too, you go back to the point of backing yourself. Now I know, because I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with Ian Markrams of the world that have said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we need to solve the problem. I can sit there and go, okay, when I'm designing all these features, org chart, whether it's the story, whether it's a continuous improvement plan, whether it's a risk analysis, whether it's even just as simple as the objectives, like, I just want this I need this to flow this way, because I remember having a conversation with Peter from Juggernaut saying, why doesn't it do this? Well, the other reason, because we built it on antiquated technology. We can do that now. We can get it to connect to this, to flow to this, to go to this, to be sent to here.
Yeah.
And all in a nice little, less stress on the mouse and the hand.
For sure. So it's really interesting, because I listened to, the CEO of Microsoft talk about this 3 or 4 weeks ago on a podcast. He's been interviewed about big software companies. He mentioned Microsoft himself, saying that there are going to be these new breed of small, leaner organizations. They're going to be able to fire up quicker, faster, go to market quicker with better tools. And you've used that philosophy. You've used AI to help yourself, create the design of what you want to hand over to your developers, and your developers are using AI as well to help code and help increase speed and performance to get things to market quicker, which is amazing. I know your design team is doing the same thing as well. There's a whole lot of things that have streamlined you compared to, let's say, a year ago. It's phenomenal, really phenomenal.
It's a new world. Like, you can run it as a 3-person operation and have the power of a 60 devs. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I've got good mates that have got offshoring, technical offshoring companies, and then he said, we're moving everything to AI, like getting all our devs to learn AI because our customer bases are requiring it. But where it actually works out really good for us, and probably this is if we had 2,000 consultants on this platform, let's just say, it becomes really prohibitive for us to make that move because migration, data, all that sort of. We're at a good number. That doesn't mean we've got crap numbers, but we're at a good number where we turn around and go. We can actually turn around and go, if we do this now, we're not going to basically annoy our customer base. So we can actually turn around and do it. If we don't do it now and we start, we're never going to be able to do this. And so I look at like competitors, I suppose you want to call it, that are in our space. They're going to be catching up to us, which is hilarious. Companies like, I'll use it, like Cascade, and those that have raised 40, 50, $100 million. They're going to be catching up to us. And this is not me being arrogant. This is just the truth. But they're going to be catching up to us in 2-3 years because they've got 10 years of development and tech.
Legacy and data and tech involved in that stack.
And then we were able to sort of move. I always used the analogy a few years ago, the Suez Canal got blocked by this big shipping container ship, whatever you want to call it. But I remember all you see is these little dinghies just flying past. So these big behemoths were stuck, could not get around the Suez Canal. And then saw these little dinghies that got to their destination a lot faster. We're going to be that dinghy because we can just sit there and zip through, and then off we go.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Xero, when Xero created a product that was in the cloud, straight up front.
Yeah.
And Myob, who we used internally at the time, was, not on the
floppy
cloud.
disks. Yeah.
And the reason why they took so long to go to the cloud wasn't because they didn't believe the cloud was the right way to go, is because they had so much technical debt, so much infrastructure built up, so much skills built around their current solution. Then to move from, this environment to the cloud was just too painful. It just took them too long. And I see this as another wave of a similar thing, even if you're on the cloud. Now, to move to new tools with AI built in and feature rich, deployment quicker and everything else, it's going to be harder. It's a big business decision to move. People want to make the decision, but it comes down to, shareholders being paid, those things are going to be stuck for 2 to 3 years.
Too many competing interests.
Because no one's going to get those returns that they invested in, because it'll take a year or two to actually switch over. Okay. And I think that's important. And I think you are, wanting those things as those migrations is when you lose people. And, if you have a lot of people in those migration platforms to migrate, you will lose people through that process as well, because they will go out and review what other tools out there that basically are the competitor to that tool before they make the move. This is like the decision-making process. Oh, Empira's there. Let's just go and have a look at these guys. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think it's a huge, interesting spot there that a lot of these big traditional software companies will end up being in. So that's interesting. So you've built Empiraa, you stopped the bus. Big move to do that. And when are you launching? Can you give us a bit of a date?
Yeah, we were actually finalising the cloud environment today. We were going to launch this week, and earlier this week, we just wanted to make sure that our biggest thing is security. We want to make sure everything's secure, and that's basically what we're doing now. We're just working through the security aspects of it, just making sure that it's safe.
For sure.
People's data's safe. So that's honestly been the biggest thing. We're just doing some final user testing. Everything's sort of working really well. So it's this week. So I'd probably would it be Wednesday now? I'd say tomorrow, if not Friday at the very latest. It's ready to go. Like everything's early user testing. We've been able to do even just even things like the live collaborations. So one of the big features that we've brought in is, and we go back to the original point about strategy falling apart pretty quickly. The reason is, and one of the early sort of mentors was Trent Ennis, who's the former MD of Xero, and so he's was a mentor of mine early days, especially. And he goes, "You've got to, with this stuff, is make it so it's collaborative and engaging." And that always sits in my head. Collaborative, engaging, is simple. They're the three things, but that's collaborative and engaging, because he was like employee number 30 at Xero, left as MD, made a couple of bucks, and he said to me. That always rang true. He goes, the reason why Xero won in Australia is because it was simple and it got to cloud and that type of stuff. So I'm like, okay, how do we make this collaborative? So the simple part, I've ticked that off. Engaging, I've ticked that off. How do we make it collaborative? Strategy is better with people, right? Strategy by yourself is not it's a plan. Strategy is, let's get people in it. How do we create tempos within our business? If we go back to our ICP, is business coaches, business consultants, business advisors, because they're working with their clients. So they're working with their clients. How do you have more meaningful meetings around your strategy? So we've built this entire meeting module so you can actually have your agendas, your frameworks all inside, and you can actually work in it in collaborative in real time. You can sit there, add notes, add comments, create actions, create goals, create objectives, all within the meeting at the time, and everyone's working inside of it. And then you're literally going from agenda point to agenda point to agenda point. One person's controlling it and is moving. So you've got these nice synchronistic meetings, which goes back to the collaboration and simplicity that we've always aimed for. Because then once you've done that, you can actually just generate from that an AI meeting summary, and they'll actually say, hey, Ian and Ash are going, sales revenue, these are the actions that are coming through. But like, it actually builds it all out, sends it to everyone. Something that would take 2-3 hours to prepare, have, and then post-mortem is all done within the time of the meeting. All the pre-work's done, all the post-work's done. So and then you're doing it in a very collaborative and engaging way. So that's the key.
Yeah, great. So we just talked a bit about remote teams early on. You had a remote team, and then you with the new AI tools and the new solution that you've gone away with, and the way you could design things, you've the teams lean, and they are basically all based in one location at the moment. Is that correct?
We're all Melbourne. Yeah, all based in Melbourne. We all come into the office a couple of times a week in Southern Cross, and it's. I'm a big believer of hybrid. I'm a big believer of hybrid working. I don't think the answer is black and white, where everyone's got to work from home or everyone's got to work from the office. I think, if you're a nurse, you can't work from home. That's fair enough. But I think that I know our government in Victoria has turned around and made this mandatory. I don't think that's required, but that's another story for another day. But I think hybrid is the best way. I think you get the best out of people. We look, once again, if you're a 3-person operation, how do we have this to be the best 3-person operation? How do we punch above our weight? And the way to do that is to have hybrid. And we're all based in Melbourne. We all catch up and we all work together, and we all get excited and depressed together. And
for sure.
Yeah, all the usual stuff. So.
No, that's good. Thanks for now the sales side. So you paused sales for a while because you're basically in product. Build and relaunch and for Empiraa too. But I know the numbers beforehand were quite amazing. The processes that you had to actually get, people to have a conversation and do demos and all that. You were on fire at one point. You're texting me and going like, look at the numbers. Can you just talk a bit about
the process? Remember, we were out for dinner and the Slack kept coming off.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, look, we understood the problem that we were solving. Once we understood the problem we were solving, we were able to build the lead magnets for Meta that we're able to generate the leads. And then once we generate those leads, then the follow-up part. So the lead generation part, investing in our return on ad spend, I think was like 1,300% or something. It was ridiculous when it was annualized. It was awesome. Like it was really good. The problem was that I knew it wasn't going to scale because the conversations I was having with people were like, oh, it doesn't quite do this. But we were able to. But what that meant was we had really high effective ads. We were able to have engaging conversations, but I know actually with the new product and the new way we were able to do demos and everything else, that we'll be able to honestly take that conversation and get that 1,300% to probably 3 or 4,000% because we'll have a better product to demo.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's I'm looking forward to the next couple of months to see other people using the product. It's going to push it further and faster, and it's great. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's all about, if we go back to the original, the ICP go to market. Understand who you're selling to. Understand what their pain point is. Don't sell your product. Your product doesn't really matter. I know this. It sounds the most ridiculous thing in the world, but as a software company, your product doesn't matter because everything's off. You can build it in PowerPoint or you can build it in Excel. Every bit of software is available, right? So what we were able to do is go, okay, let's talk about how people are troubling to scale their consultancy and advisory firms, people started identifying that, hey, I want to download a guide on how to do that. Okay, cool. They're having time issues. They're having this. We want to talk to them because we're identifying the customer.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Okay. I just want to talk a bit about the fundraising. So you did the first initial fundraise to get the money in. You built the team, downscaled the team, went the typical path of a SaaS startup.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong there. And basically, you then try to raise in late 2024, and there were elections were happening and in the US. Can you talk a bit about that, the timing?
Yeah, I mean, just horrible timing. We did a virtual raise, that type of stuff. It was, crowdfunding, very challenging to do, especially in that environment. The back end of last year, there was a lot of uncertainty. Rates kept going up. The wholesale investors were very nervous about interest rates because a lot of the wholesale investors are highly leveraged, and then also too, what's going on with the stock markets in the US, because that directly affects what goes on in Australia.
Yeah.
And with the US elections, anything could happen. When anything does happen, as we find out on a daily basis, and it was one of those things. It was like, okay, we pretty much underperformed with that. We've been lucky is we've got a really engaged group of investors that really back us in and understand that the passion of what we're trying to do. I was speaking to one yesterday. He goes, I don't know what it is about you guys, but there's this energy about it that I don't have from other investments. I said, well, it's not the return on investment because that hasn't come yet. But he goes, no, but you're doing things the right way. You're doing things truthfully. You're doing things with a value set, and you're making it hard. And I think this is probably one of the things that a lot of investors don't, a lot of startups don't realize that good investors are smart. They know that it goes bad at times. It's about having that ability to sort of go back to the vulnerability part, to say, hey, look, it's going bad. We're weeks away from falling over here if we don't have this. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do. And by the way, we're not continually paying. We haven't got a $60,000 a month payroll. We've got a $20,000 a month payroll. So we've done all the things that good business owners should do. I think once you do that, you're right. But yeah, the back end of 2024, pretty much from 2023 to 2024, the back end of 2024, very, very difficult markets to raise.
Brilliant. And now the future, capital strategy to grow the business, because obviously, you've got to keep on pumping the money in there so you can scale. Can you talk about that a bit at the moment?
Yeah. So for us, it's honestly investing into the channels that work on sales channels that work. So Meta, affiliates, that type of stuff. So especially Meta's the biggest one. And then providing sales with the resources to follow up every single lead within a day. That's our big one. We're able to reduced our development costs significantly, so we're not pouring money into development. And that doesn't mean we're not developing fast. We're developing faster, but more efficiently and more capital efficient than we've ever done before. So everything for us is like, what are we driving top of funnel and customer experience? They're the two things. So driving top of funnel that drops out, comes revenue, and then how do we take that customers? So we acquiring customers. How do we take that customer experience so we can create lifetime value to those lifetime value as well? So we're not having churn issues. We're actually having we're having high retention numbers, that type, which we do anyway. Which still stuns me on 1.0, which is what it is. We have such low churn numbers. So to me, it's a case of paid churn, I should say. Like trials were a bit different, but paid churn very low, less than 0.5%. So, but when we're talking about so that's what we're using capital for. Like, we know the funnels that we're investing in actually work, and if we put 10 grand a month into that, we know we can get 10, 20x out of that annualized for every 10. So it was like, well, let's invest in what works. Every business, you invest in what works. If you're selling pepperoni pizzas at a pizza shop, and that pepperoni pizza is outselling everything else, you just sell pepperoni pizzas, and you sell that pepperoni pizza as best as you possibly can. You find something that works and you stick to it.
For sure, that's brilliant. Okay, so I'm closing out a bit. We've got like 5 minutes left. I know you're busy, and I appreciate your time.
No.
So advice to any SaaS founders out there building, a solution of some sort? Have you got any?
Don't do it. No. Don't do it. No. Do you like your sanity? No. In all honesty, bootstrap as much as you possibly can. Use the tools that are currently out there. We're in an unbelievable golden age. It's been a quantum leap in development. And I was speaking to someone on Google about this, and this is not just an opinion of mine. This is an opinion of effectively market leader. We've gone from effectively analog to digital to in a matter of months to go from sort of washing our clothes in the creek to a washing machine in weeks. We've made that big of jump in technology. From now on, it'll be just incremental increases. I think ChatGPT released a thing yesterday, OpenAI, about the AI agents. I mean, that's going to be phenomenal as well. So it's about bootstrappers. You won't need to spend $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to build software anymore. You could do it on your credit card for probably $3,000 or $4,000. In all honesty, I know that's it. And then people say, why would you do that? Well, that's actually the most cost-effective way. And then once you do it, and the biggest part is have an actual, and this, I wish I could talk to myself about this 5 years ago, but know exactly who you're building for. I had ambition, still do, that doesn't wane, get you up every morning. But it's to understand who you're actually building for, build it to be the best and simplest solution for them, but also have a look at what the market's doing. Like even having a look at reviews of other products that what people don't like. That's what you build to. So and honestly, you're in an age now you can build faster, build a business quicker, faster, more efficient, more lean. You don't fall in love with the idea. And I did it as well. It is what it is. Don't fall in love with the idea of we want to raise, with Airtree or Blackbird, and we want to have, because those AFR articles, they last, and those likes on LinkedIn last 12, 18 hours, and then the news cycle moves on to something else. Don't fall in love with that. Build the product to the solution and solve an actual problem.
Yeah. Brilliant. What's the best way for listeners to connect with you?
Go to Empiraa.com, as you see, we're the branding, or LinkedIn. I'm reasonably active on LinkedIn, I suppose you want to call it. So just look for Ash Brown, Empiraa, or send me an email at ash@Empiraa, so spell that, .com. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Ash. It's always good to chat with you, and thanks for building a great product that my clients can use and at Loading Growth. And I appreciate it to get them all onto the Empiraa version 2. Thanks a lot.
No worries, Ian. Thank you very much. You're an absolute legend and you're a gem to the industry. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on IT Mastermind Talks. Don't miss out on our next episode. Hit the follow button and stay updated. Want to be our next podcast guest? Contact us and share your expertise with our audience. Visit www.itmastermindtalks.com for more information.